You know what's funny? I've said it before and I'll say it again. I never got into rock until probably high school, and that's true. But it wasn't until Grand Theft Auto 5 that I actually got to listen to stuff I like. When playing as Trevor, my favorite character by the way, listening to Channel X while cruising down the streets of Blaine County was a beautiful pastime of mine. It wasn't until years later that I grew to love and appreciate these songs and more, partially because of nostalgia. And that nostalgia brought me to today, where I hold in my hands the many songs that I once admired. Among the hardcore bands like Youth Brigade, Black Flag, and Agent Orange, there was Ceremony, the band I'll be talking about today. The year was 2004. George W. Bush got re-elected, Facebook and Gmail just launched, and a few classics released like Shrek 2, Spider-Man 2, The Incredibles, and Howl's Moving Castle. And at the tail end of the year, in December, in Rohnert Park, California, a band by the name of Violent World released their first demo tape. Later known as Ceremony, they played their first live show in 2005. The name change was inspired by the song of the same name by the band New Order. The band consists of 5 members. Originally, it was Roz Farah on vocals, Anthony Anzaldo and Ryan Matos on guitar, Jake Cazzarati on drums, and Justin Davis on bass. But Ryan and Justin were eventually replaced with Andy Nelson and Jasmine Watson. The band is said to be a mix of hardcore punk, post-hardcore, garage rock, post-punk, new wave, and power violence, which on its own is a chaotic and fast subgenre of hardcore punk, and is related to thrashcore and grindcore. Well, you learn something new every day. They have a lot of influences, some of which are in GTA 5, like Suicidal Tendencies and Black Flag, but also includes Joy Division, Negative Approach, The Ventures, TSOL, Oasis, and many, many more. Coming in with 6 albums, 3 EPs, and 9 singles, I'm taking a stab at the first song on their 4th album, Zoo, which is also listed as a single, Hysteria. Hysteria is relatively a short song, lasting about 2 minutes and 30 seconds, but despite its length, it's very, very deep. At least, I think so. Let's talk about the first 3 lines for a bit. How will we survive? They continue to ask. No one ever does. No one ever does. There's so much grief in breaking for bread. When it comes to any tragedy, disaster, etc., how will we survive is one of the many questions people ask. Realistically, whether we survive then or not, we still die, as no one ever does. Most likely, we're gonna die to the same circumstances as anyone else. Or maybe not die, but suffer. Suffering from never having enough money, going hungry some nights, diseases, wondering how you're going to dig your way out of it while living that American dream. It also talks about breaking for bread, as breaking bread is a Christian term for sharing, yet it's said that there's so much grief in it. Well, when I think about it, we're forced to ration everything. Food, energy, sleep, blood, hopes, dreams, homes, and spaces, sacrificing so much to make ends meet. The next 4 lines read, Hysteria, 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 all we've ever known. In my understanding, there's 2 types of hysteria. The very public mass hysteria split between both excitement and fear. An example of hysteria, in case you don't know, is one that's shared in most media classes, that of Orson Welles' War of the Worlds 1938 radio broadcast. It wasn't common back then to hear narratives in movie form read on the radio. And with how convincing the broadcast was, listeners truly believed aliens were taking over the planet. It was a mass hysteria, so to speak, causing mass panic. It's sort of a paranoia shared among groups of people, like the fear and belief of witches during the Salem witch trials, or even today with the COVID pandemic and the common thought of death being certain. I believe that hysteria is being talked about especially in relativity to the last lines. Grief and that constant need to survive are factors that can come from hysteria. I'll talk about the other side of hysteria soon. Reread into the next 3 lines with, "No birth without blood, no confusion without us. The book of nightmares carries the moan. Our bodies in a war not tightening." I'm not gonna lie to you, this bitch threw me through a loop. I had to go line by line with it. And yeah, you have to bleed to give birth, that's pretty obvious. You can't really go about it any other way. And it's clear that humanity is, well, complex. But the middle part was something poetic, and so was the last part. Firstly, let's try to break the lyric down. The Book of Nightmares carries the moan. We know that a book has written information in it, and nightmares are things we dream of that we fear. This Book of Nightmares carries or causes the moan, a moan sort of being a wail of pain or grief or suffering. There's also the fact that when a book is written, it can also be said that the information in it is set in stone, or predetermined. So I surmise that this line may have 3 meanings. One, that this line may be in reference to a journal or diary. We tend to write secrets in them that, if were discovered, could cause us to suffer or panic. Or more so, that our secrets have already been known specifically by a higher power, and that those secrets are held over our heads in the form of blackmail. The second idea is that this could be a biblical reference. Seeing as there has already been a biblical reference with the breaking for bread line, it's possible that the Book of Nightmares is actually the Book of Revelations. People tend to say that the scariest book of the Bible is the Book of Revelations, since it talks about how exactly we're all going to die, among other things. When people read it or talk about it, their reactions are akin to a moan. Or you could say that it causes mass hysteria. And the third idea is that maybe it's not as deep as a biblical reference or a conspiracy, but so much so that it's simply saying that hysteria is predetermined. The pain and suffering that we are to endure is inevitable. There's also the last part saying, "Our bodies in a war not tightening." It's a bit confusing because you would expect there to be a comma in the middle of the sentence, but there is none. So we just have to take it as is. When I hear not tightening, I think of stomach pains to start. But when I actually look at the rest of the line, I start to think. Our bodies are constantly fighting off viruses and bacteria. Even oxygen, though not immediately killing us, is essential for our survival, but it's also oxidizing our organs. Like how oxygen makes iron rust, it happens to us very, very slowly. Maybe the not tightening could represent our time limit. I also used to hear not tied to name as opposed to not tightening. Assuming I kept believing this, it also has conspiratorial thoughts. I mean, think about companies. Businesses or people that are looked down upon or under fire usually change their name or work under another name to trick and escape persecution. An example, or not so example, of this is the idea of a court case. I remember reading about a court case where somebody sued a big company for something that upset them. When they actually got in court, it was realized that rather than going against the main company that they were trying to sue, they actually went against one of the subsidiaries of the company with a name that was given to them. Intentional or not, it's gotten to the point that names don't matter in war. We are literally fighting battles against people with no clear name. The last 6 to 7 lines proceed as follows. Hysteria, 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 all we've ever known. Hysteria, 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 hysteria. All we've ever known. Hysteria, 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 oh, hysteria, oh, hysteria, hysteria, hysteria. All we ever known. Hysteria can be split between one or two different types. As I said, it could be fear or excitement, and judging by the sound of the band, we really get the good kind here. The very upbeat music that you get from every band that you like. Something that you're fond of that gives you energy. It's sort of euphoric. Good or bad, hysteria is indeed all we've ever known. Hysteria is actually one of my favorite songs. It's short, deep, and just has a catchy melody. Not to be confused with Hysteria by Muse, Hysteria by Ceremony is one of those rock bands that make you really want to get into the genre and play the guitar yourself. I mean, after all, I learned this song's bass part. It even got me interested in the band itself, as now I'm gonna go check out their first album, Violence, Violence, and skate around the campus just to feel something. Give me a chance to just put you onto this music while you eat, and just check it out. Shit. Alright, see ya.